Radioactive water. Once upon a time, and by once we mean early 1900s, people willingly drank water infused with radioactive elements. Not by accident. On purpose. Like it was fancy spa juice for your bones. Meet Radither, the original energy drink made of distilled water and radium. It promised to cure everything from arthritis to impotence. And yes, it glowed in the dark, which back then apparently meant it was working. Spoiler alert, it was absolutely working at destroying people's insides. One especially enthusiastic user was Eben Byers, a wealthy socialite and athlete who downed bottles of Radither like it was Gatorade. He died with holes in his skull and had to be buried in a lead-lined coffin because his corpse was still radioactive. That's not a metaphor. That's just horrifying science. At the time, people thought radioactivity was this magical life force. The same way people today think celery juice can reverse aging or that staring into the sun boosts testosterone, don't do either. Why did this happen? Well, early 20th century medicine was the Wild West. If it sounded high-tech, vaguely glowed, and hadn't killed everyone yet, it was probably good for vitality. Basically, people were microdosing nuclear waste in hopes of better digestion. So next time someone tells you to try a mysterious, natural health tonic, maybe ask if it requires a hazmat suit first. Mercury for everything. Imagine having a sore throat and someone says, "Here, gargle this metal that can melt through your hand." That's basically what medicine used to be like with mercury. For centuries, mercury was the go-to miracle cure. You had a rash? Mercury. Toothache? Mercury. Depression? Why not try more mercury? It was the multivitamin of pre-modern medicine, except it was literally toxic and made your brain dissolve into soup. The ancient Chinese, Greeks, and Egyptians all used mercury in various horrifying ways, but things really took off in Europe when doctors started prescribing it for syphilis. That's right, to treat a disease that makes you lose your mind, they gave you a substance that also makes you lose your mind. It was like fighting fire with gasoline and then being surprised your house burned down. One 16th century remedy involved smearing mercury ointment all over your skin and then sitting in a small, hot room until you sweated out the illness. What you actually did was sweat out chunks of your immune system while slowly poisoning your kidneys. Even Lewis and Clark carried mercury pills on their expedition, which left behind, shall we say, very traceable evidence at their campsites. And yes, archaeologists have literally tracked their journey through radioactive poop trails. That's real science. It took centuries and a lot of corpses for doctors to realize maybe, just maybe, feeding people liquid metal wasn't the best idea. So the next time you cringe at a bitter cough syrup, be thankful it doesn't glow, corrode your organs, or require a medieval sweating chamber. Smoking for your lungs. Ah yes, nothing says healthy respiratory system like inhaling burning chemicals into your face hole. Back in the good old days, let's say from the 1930s to the 1950s, cigarettes weren't just socially acceptable. They were basically doctor-approved. Literally. Tobacco companies ran full-page ads featuring smiling doctors in white coats saying things like, "I smoke Camels, so should you." The logic? Smoking relaxed the nerves, opened the airways, and supposedly even aided digestion. Because if there's one thing your esophagus loves, it's a tar-scented barbecue. Cigarettes were advertised for everything: sore throats, weight loss, even as a stress relief for pregnant women. One brand claimed their filter removed harsh irritants as if they were selling organic kale instead of future lung tumors. It gets worse, some early asthma treatments actually included cigarettes. That's right. Asthma, the thing that makes it hard to breathe in, was being treated with smoke. That's like curing dehydration with sandpaper. This wasn't just marketing madness. Back then, scientific research was often funded by, you guessed it, tobacco companies. Which means most of the science was about as reliable as a horoscope written by a Labrador retriever. Eventually, a few pesky things called facts caught up: lung cancer, emphysema, and decades of people coughing their way into early graves. But for a while, smoking wasn't a health threat, it was a health solution. So next time you see an old black and white photo of a doctor lighting up, remember, that was once the cutting edge of healthcare. Tapeworm diets. Imagine willingly swallowing a parasite so it can eat your food for you. No, this isn't a nightmare or an episode of Black Mirror. This was an actual weight loss trend in the early 1900s, the glorious, grotesque era of the tapeworm diet. Here's the pitch: you pop a pill that contains a baby tapeworm. The tapeworm grows inside your intestines, munching away at your calories while you continue eating like a raccoon in a snack aisle. The result? Supposed weight loss without exercise. Yay! Also, massive internal damage and possible death. Slight downside: Some ads even claimed no ill effects, which is a bold claim for a living creature that can grow up to 25 feet inside your gut and make you violently sick. But hey, anything for the dream body, right? There were rumors and possibly real cases of celebrities trying this method, which made it weirdly trendy, kind of like today's detox teas, except with more wriggling. Of course, what people didn't see was the part where you eventually had to get it out. And by get it out, we mean you either had to take more meds to kill it or hope it crawled out of your body on its own. Pause for gagging. The tapeworm diet is the perfect example of humans taking the concept of calorie deficit and turning it into a full-blown horror movie. It's like if someone tried to lose weight by setting their kitchen on fire. Modern weight loss scams may be shady, but at least they don't involve intentionally getting infested. Yet, bloodletting for everything. Got a headache? Bleed it out. Feeling sad? Bleed it out. Just stubbed your toe and feel a little off? Guess what? Bleed it out. For centuries, bloodletting was the medical equivalent of turning your computer off and on again. No matter the illness, fevers, infections, inflammation, bad vibes, the go-to solution was sticking leeches on you or slicing open a vein to drain your precious life juice. Why? Because doctors believed in the four humors theory: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. If those weren't perfectly balanced, you were basically doomed. So naturally, the fix was to get rid of a bunch of blood until you looked like an extra from Twilight. Science. Even George Washington, yes, the first U.S. president, died after doctors drained around 40% of his blood in an attempt to cure a throat infection. Spoiler, it didn't work. But hey, at least his humors were probably in perfect harmony on the way out. And it wasn't just a back alley procedure. Barbers, yes, the guys who cut your hair also did bloodletting. That's why barber poles are red and white. Red for blood, white for bandages. So the next time you're getting a trim, just be thankful nobody's reaching for the leeches. It took centuries for modern medicine to realize that maybe constantly exsanguinating people wasn't the answer to all life's problems. Now we have antibiotics, painkillers, and logic. Still, you've got to admire the commitment. Few things say dedicated to the bit like draining someone's soul out through their elbows in the name of wellness. Cocaine for colds. Feeling stuffy? Can't sleep? Got a mild cough or an existential crisis? There was a time when doctors would look you dead in the eyes and say, you know what might help? Cocaine. Yep. The very same drug we now associate with Wall Street implosions and mugshots used to be sold over the counter as a cure-all. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, cocaine was the peppermint tea of its time, a casual household remedy for colds, toothaches, and, apparently, emotional collapse. It wasn't just accepted, it was celebrated. It was in toothache drops for children, lozenges for sore throats, and even Coca-Cola. Yes, that Coca-Cola. The original recipe literally included a hit of cocaine per serving. No wonder people were so loyal to the brand. And don't forget the medical endorsements. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, was an enthusiastic user and called cocaine a magical drug. Spoiler, he later regretted that. Even nostrils weren't safe. Doctors recommended snorting powdered cocaine to clear the sinuses, which sure it did, in the same way a flamethrower clears spider webs. The side effects? Oh, just mild things like addiction, psychosis, nasal collapse, and total moral erosion. But back then, that was called Tuesday. Eventually, medical science caught on that maybe turning people into twitchy Victorian wrecks wasn't ideal, and cocaine was banned from medicine, mostly. But its glamorous, drugstore promo past remains a weird footnote in human history. So next time you're stuck with a cold, reach for the tissues, not the narcotics. Vibrators for hysteria. Once upon a deeply awkward time in medical history, doctors treated women's emotional distress, known back then as hysteria, by manually stimulating them to relieve tension. Yes, that's real. And it gets weirder. In the 19th century, it was believed that hysteria, a catch-all diagnosis for everything from anxiety to boredom to not smiling enough, could be cured by inducing paroxysms, which is a super scientific way of saying orgasm without acknowledging it's an orgasm. Since doctors' hands would get tired, no, seriously, that was a reported complaint, inventors created the vibrator as a labor-saving device. It was originally a piece of medical equipment used in clinics before eventually making its way into consumer catalogs sandwiched between hair curlers and sewing machines. Because nothing says Victorian home goods like steam-powered pleasure tools. This wasn't just some fringe quackery. It was mainstream medicine. Elite women booked treatments with their physicians often without even knowing what was happening because talking about female sexuality back then was more taboo than witchcraft and tax evasion combined. The whole bizarre practice only started fading out when vibrators appeared in early adult films and doctors collectively went, "Oh no, now it's inappropriate." Looking back, it's equal parts horrifying and hilarious. Women were being gaslit into thinking their personalities were diseases, and the treatment was, let's call it unexpectedly enthusiastic massage therapy. So yeah, humanity once looked at legitimate emotional needs and went, let's not listen to her, let's just crank a machine until she stops yelling. Medicine, not always the most emotionally intelligent field. Arsenic beauty products. If someone offered you a skincare routine that included poison, would you try it? Because once upon a time, having a glow-up meant risking actual death. Enter arsenic, the glamorous, pale-skin miracle of the 19th century. Victorian women, desperate for that ghostly, I never leave my manor aesthetic, turned to tonics and powders loaded with arsenic to bleach their skin and remove blemishes. Side effects? Just a touch of hair loss, organ failure, and a tendency to drop dead. But hey, you look great in your coffin. Some of these beauty products were literal pills with names like Dr. Rose's arsenic complexion wafers. They promised to purify the skin, which is technically true because arsenic was purifying people from life itself. The logic was classic old-timey brilliance. If a little something is toxic, just take a tiny bit every day and hope your body doesn't quit. It's the same energy as licking batteries to feel the power. And it wasn't just for skin. Arsenic was also used in soaps, powders, and even face masks. Imagine lathering poison on your cheeks before bed and thinking, can't wait to look flawless if I wake up. This toxic trend wasn't just about beauty, it was social class too. Pale skin meant you didn't work outside like a filthy peasant. And if you happen to slowly deteriorate from chronic poisoning, totally worth it for that sickly glow. So next time your skincare routine takes 5 steps, remember, at least none of them involve slow-motion self-poisoning for a bit of blush. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.